right, welcome to our May the 4th special. I'm Marcus Blake, one of the hosts of That Nerd Show. With me, as always, is Brendan.
Hello, Star Wars fans.
And we have a guest, Rob from Clubhouse Podcast. First
doing?
time doing something with That Nerd Show. So with it being May the 4th, we couldn't resist by doing a special because that's how we roll.
And we wanted an excuse to come to the pub on a Monday and drink some beer.
Well, we don't really need an excuse for that.
No, but it's nice to have one.
Exactly, it is. And besides, it's May the 4th. This is a very important day, especially this year, because we are 6 months away from Episode 7. And we got to finally see another trailer, which is fantastic. So we have a lot to talk about what we think is going to happen, what we know so far, and generally, how excited we are for Star Wars. And I think it couldn't be perfect. It couldn't even be more perfect than to do it on May the 4th. So, all right. So here's the first question. How important is it to see a Star Wars trailer on the big screen? And we're going to let our guest go first.
For me, number one, I got to see it in 3D Thursday night when I got to go see Age of Ultron. And I know there was all those talk for all these years that we were going to get all 6 in order, one a year in 3D. And
right.
As we know, that fell apart after Episode 1. But to see new footage that was supposed to be shot that way, it made a great trailer even better. Just that opening shot going across the desert to see that grounded Star Destroyer in the 3D with the depth that it had.
Right.
Which, by the way, isn't that now already the most used computer background in history?
It wouldn't surprise me.
With the Star Destroyer?
Yeah, within moments of that trailer hitting the web, I saw 9 people on social media going, "I need this on my wall. I need this on my computer."
Yeah.
But just the depth of that picture, I think I might have screamed like a little girl. I'm not real sure.
Yeah, there was some squeeing involved.
I'm glad that you feel comfortable enough to admit that on this show and in this movie, Rob.
We cannot ridicule ourselves. We cannot ridicule anyone else.
Look, everybody has probably seen my little scene of my reaction. Yeah, I was crying. I will freely admit that I was crying. There's not
He went full on Matthew McConaughey.
Well, I didn't have my shirt off, but I wasn't all greased up. Hey. I haven't gotten to that point yet. Maybe by the end of this film.
Was that Matthew McConaughey or Fat Albert? I'm not sure which.
Hey now.
Wow. That's your boy.
It's good that I don't have low self-esteem, and that I can freely admit crying. Yeah.
It was interesting for me to see the IMAX 3D logo at the end of it as well.
Yeah.
It took me a minute for me to wrap my brain around that. It's just.
I'm just testing out my Jedi powers.
You know what?
Yeah,
you don't even have to wave your hand anymore. You can just stare at it and it's there. And for us to get 2 teaser trailers.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm hoping we're still getting one big trailer later.
There's no doubt.
And there'll be tons of, I'm sure that'll come maybe, in September or something. But
I was thinking Ant-Man at the end of July.
Maybe that would be nice.
Because wraps up Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. True. Give us something to hold us over for another 5 months.
Until that, and then of course, Captain America after that,
right.
Which would be the next
one.
Well,
and we don't really have that long to go now. I mean, when we did our first scene last November of going to see the teaser trailer, it really did seem like a long time away.
And we thought Ultron was forever away.
Right.
We blinked and it was here.
Yeah, but they were saying a watch pot never boils.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I find interesting. We're used to paying for movie tickets to go see a trailer.
Episode 1 was a prime example.
Right.
How many of you have a Waterboy ticket stub just because there was the episode 1 trailer?
How many people don't stick around for the movie? The Incredibles, I think that was what I saw for episode 3.
Okay.
Or I should say didn't see the movie.
What piece of garbage did we go see just to see the trailer and then we walked out?
Oh, Mockingjay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Still haven't seen it.
Yeah,
and we're a nerd show, but thank God we had a blogger to go see that movie.
Exactly.
We don't
Get employees.
We don't have to do that anymore. We can see them online and watch it 50 times and before we go see them on the big screen. But I think it's important to see it on the big screen.
There's something about that communal feeling you get when you're in a theater with 300 people, all there for the same reason, and watching it together. I mean, we all did it when JJ released it 20 minutes into Celebration.
Right.
No matter where you work, I was at work, and I work. There's a bunch of geeks where I work, and I was like, all I did was say, guys, it's up. and my desk was just surrounded.
Well-
but there's something about that big screen
I
experience.
want to hone in on something you said there. There's a bunch of geeks where you work.
Mhm.
Where do I submit an application?
Believe me, you'd be more than welcome.
I want to personally thank J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy for doing that. So we didn't have a bunch of bootleg copies, and we had to wait till Monday. Everybody got to see it at the same time.
Well, I told
Amen to that.
myself, I'm not watching shaky cam footage of this. I'm not going to watch it until there's a high quality, high resolution chapter. Some friends of ours walking by behind us. Out of here.
Happy May the 4th, guys.
But all of a sudden, there it was. Like, I was reading an article about how JJ bought 1,500 people standing in line pizza. Turned my head, turned back. There's the trailer.
Right.
And it was from the Star Wars YouTube channel, so I knew I was
Right.
going to get it right, because I was not going to watch a shaky cam.
I will admit I freaked out a little bit because I was at home and I was watching the live stream, and the live stream from the panel just went black right as they were about to show the trailer, and I was like, ah! I might have just like had a bit of an aneurysm, but then somebody was like, no, go to the YouTube channel. I was like, thank God.
Now, I don't know, have you seen the video that somebody shot where it's the trailer, but in the corner, it's somebody shooting it from the crowd, so you get the actual crowd reaction as it syncs up with the trailer.
No, I haven't seen
That
that.
is a great video
I might
because
have to look that up, yeah.
as everybody's cheering right before you hear Han's voice, everybody's going nuts. Han says Chewie. It's like somebody muted the crowd. It's like everybody stops. And then, of course, the final shot of that trailer comes up, and you can't hear anything else after that.
Yeah.
Well, if there's one great thing about Star Wars fans, you're never gonna get rid of that nostalgia. I mean, the way it should be, the old ways. Using a reference from the Force, the old ways of the Force and Jedis, and yeah, I'm going that.
It's all right.
route.
Take it there, bro.
I love technology. I love the things that we can do, and I absolutely remember, 10 years ago when you first started having flat screen TVs and you could hook up a laptop to play the trailer off your computer, and that was great. That was the first time we got to do it, but it was still better, on the big screen. The only simple pleasure that I have now is using like a Google Chromecast and using my tablet to play YouTube on my big screen TV and going
Beams it up.
right, and it's perfect quality. That's fantastic, but it still doesn't beat seeing the trailer the way it's meant to be
Absolutely.
seen before a movie that you're absolutely going to love.
Well, because as good as your home surround sound system might be, you're not in a theater with 300 other people screaming and yelling for the same reasons. And as good as your home surround system might be, it still can't register on the Richter scale like
No.
movie theaters can.
Well, and when we saw it Thursday night, we were in the Dolby Atmos.
Right.
So you're talking 128 tracks of audio
Yeah.
for this. It's like, it's just, you go back to when we saw the originals as kids, and we were
Right.
like, this is the bar. This is
Yeah.
right. And then you look now and you go, I want to go back to myself when I was a kid. Just be patient. It's going to get better.
Which
Because
is a
it
great,
does, and it just keeps getting better.
Which is a great point about going back to where you were as a kid, because my first movie experience, and indeed my first Star Wars experience, was 32 years ago, the summer of '83. My sister and my brother took me to a drive-in to see a double feature of Return of the Jedi and James Bond and Octopussy.
Very
Now,
nice.
32 years later, Spectre is coming out a month before Episode 7. I'm going to go see Spectre that afternoon before I go see
Nice.
Force Awakens, so that I can go see them both at the same time and have that same experience.
And
when I was
I'm
a kid.
currently going through. I've gotten through the first two Bond films. I'm going to make sure I've gotten through all of them before. I actually remember '77.
Yeah.
I was 3. I was almost 4, and
I was
got
a
to
twinkle
see
in my
it.
daddy's eye. I was born a year later.
I got to see it in one of those old one film theaters
Right.
that had the balcony.
It was like an old opera theater converted.
And what I remember was the entire lobby was full of production still cards. And walking into this lobby and going, what's about to happen to my life? What is this? This is a thing. And people can say it changed my life, and it did.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was I can pinpoint that is the moment where I embraced my geekness and then I never let it go.
Well, since we're chronicling our journey here in Dallas, even though like Brendan and I weren't born in the city,
Nor was I.
nor was you, I do think there's a very distinct like BC AD where you cross that line and everything completely changes.
Mm-hmm.
There is that renaissance that begins, and I think it is Star Wars. For everybody that got to enjoy the old North Park Theater here in Dallas, Especially when they got to see Return of the Jedi with the THX sound system.
And the very first certified THX theater, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken.
Yeah. So you can't replace that. No matter what we do, that's always going to be there. But you can try to recapture that nostalgia, and that's the importance of going back to the theater and
Even the
seeing
Star
it
Wars
trailer.
timeline was based off of it. Before the Battle of Yavin, after the Battle of Yavin.
And I miss those THX theaters. You know, when your sound system is so great that it cracks the foundation of the theater
Right.
that it's in, which it did for Jurassic Park.
Like I said.
At North Park 1 and 2.
Meets the
You
Richter
don't
scale.
have that anymore. And you mentioned the drive-in. I'm a huge fan of the drive-in.
Oh yeah.
Don't let the Galaxy do a marathon, because I'm taking 3 days off
And there's
work.
there's one down in Ennis, or just before
That's
you
the
think,
Galaxy,
that's
is in
Galaxy,
it.
yeah,
And the Coyote's out in Fort Worth.
I'll tell
I haven't
you,
been out there yet, but I've heard
if
it's
they do a
amazing.
marathon, we're all going. We'll just.
Now, the Alamo's already talking about it.
I love
Apparently, the
Alamo
Alamo is already making inroads to, we're going to do this.
And for those watching, if you don't know what it is, the Alamo Draft House is a movie theater with awesome food, so much better than Studio Movie Grill.
By a country mile.
Yeah, and they've got just a wonderful selection of local and national craft beer. Great place to watch a movie.
And if you do go to an Alamo Draft House, get there early, because 30 minutes before your movie starts, there's a custom pre-show for the movie you're watching.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about Hunger Games earlier.
Right.
I went with a good friend of mine for Mockingjay Part 1. They actually had they found somebody on YouTube that did the Hunger Games with cats, and they showed that as part of the pre-show. Like, that's the genius of the Alamo. They do retro movies all the time. This Thursday, they're doing a sing-along, and it's all 80s videos from movies.
And their don't talk during the movie theater spiel is done by Mark Hamill.
There's
And he threatens you with the
there's a
Force.
bunch of them.
Yeah.
Danny Trejo did one right before Machete Kills, and you can find them all on YouTube. They're all out there now.
Now, we've seen 2 teaser trailers. What do we know so far about Star Wars?
What we know the kids are involved. Like, that's
yeah.
the extent of what I've
Well,
got.
we assume. And we don't know that to be sure.
I think it's still,
strong assumption.
it's highly speculative. There's, we're all journalists. It's not double confirmation.
Right.
We don't know. However, I think it's a foregone conclusion that Rey has got to be Han and Leia's kid, and I have a sneaking suspicion that so is Kylo Ren, and they're twins, and something happens. So you're still going to have that storyline.
And apparently today, the big Vanity Fair.
Right.
They
They released photos for that.
So it's confirmed what everybody guessed. Adam Driver is
right.
Kylo Ren.
Another chronicle, in our journey here. Another leg. We know certain things, which is about the timeline between Star Wars. About 6 months, you start to figure out everything.
Post celebration.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Things will trickle out all summer.
But here's honestly what we can tell from the trailer. We know John Boyega his character is a stormtrooper and is not a stormtrooper. Has a crisis of faith and isn't one. We know Oscar Isaac is a hotshot X-wing pilot. We know Rey is a scavenger in the desert, and she's pretty much going to be the main hero.
We know that the desert planet is not Tatooine;
Right.
it's Jakku.
So we know that there was a great battle there that happened right after Endor. So we know that when Han and Chewie are talking about referring that they're home, it's the fact that they are on the Millennium Falcon and have not been there in a long
Which
time.
somehow has a tumbler underneath it, which we're still trying to figure out. I don't know if you saw the video JJ shot
Yeah.
of he was walking along the Falcon, and it's the Dark Knight music in the background, and the escape hatch underneath, there is a tumbler sitting there.
Well,
Which I personally, as a Batman freak, I was happy. These are my worlds colliding, and I'm okay with this.
But
we know who Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones is.
right,
Captain Phasma.
Right.
With the Chrome Trooper.
We know
as they're called.
that what's her face is that I can never pronounce her name correctly from 12 Years as a Slave.
Lupita Nyong'o.
Thank you. I can't pronounce these names, so But anyway.
He relies on me.
Yeah.
Fair point.
But everybody
We've
knows
got
who
one of
I'm.
those too.
Everybody knows who I'm talking about when I say what's her face.
Yes.
But we know that she's an alien, and that she's the one giving the lightsaber to a woman. Luke's old lightsaber, Anakin's old lightsaber.
Which I was a little disappointed by. Not that she's an alien, not that she was the one giving it, it's that her character isn't a CGI Ahsoka Tano. Because when I saw it, I was like, feminine hand, slight hand, orange skin. I was thinking, maybe Ahsoka survived and she's in her 60s and here's my old master's lightsaber.
But you also bring up the debate, too. How'd they find it?
Yes.
Right.
And that's That's got to play in somehow.
Because somehow it ended up in a garbage scowl and ended up on Rakata Prom
with a
or
hand
something.
attached to it.
Exactly. So, because somehow it ended up in a garbage scowl somewhere because it went down
and I
the
will not
garbage
accept Galactic eBay. I will not accept that as an answer.
chute. No, the HoloNet doesn't count.
Okay.
Also, if this turns out to be true, I'm walking out of the theater. If the opening shot literally is a floating hand with a lightsaber, I'm done. I am done.
That's
right
the opening
there.
scene of the next trailer, actually.
JJ, if that's the opening scene, if that's the opening crawl, you will forever
better
be known
be
as Jar
kidding.
Jar. You will be. It's going to happen. You will be Jar Jar Abrams for the rest of your life.
We're already going to be revolting.
Now, but we also know that the JJ is not coming back for 8,
Right.
but coming back for 9.
Possibly. Has that been confirmed yet?
From what I've read, he said he'll do 9.
Okay.
I think if he says he's going to do 9 and they had to chase him to do 7, then
I'm
he's pretty
torn on that, to be honest, because I like the idea of 3 different directors doing it, just like the original series. But if he does a good job with 7, hell with it.
And I like the concept of him going, you know what, I don't want to do all 3. Let somebody else take this, and then not only let me see what I can do from what I built it, but let me see what I can do to build off of what somebody else did.
Right.
Because he's really not building off of episode 6, in my personal opinion.
No, only tangentially.
It's really just references.
Yeah.
Like, he's taking it in a new story direction, which I think we've wanted for so long. Look at the popularity of the EU alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't even know if anybody's got a net worth of what the EU actually is, but it's got to be 10 digits. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about over 100 novels, of which half of them are New York Times bestsellers.
Right.
So,
Now, the only thing that we don't really know for sure, but I think, again, it's a fair guess that, when Mark Hamill is basically using the same lines from Return of the Jedi that talked about the Force is strong in my family, we do know that Mark Hamill re-recorded those lines for this trailer. But the character with the robot hand on R2-D2 in the trailer, we don't know for sure whether that's him or not, or somebody else.
We assume it's him, but we don't know for sure.
Just like that we assume that the lightsaber is being handed off to Leia in the trailer.
See, that was my first thought, but in talking with my co-host, Chad, I wish he could be here tonight, but he's got some very important business he's taking care of. He's like, those hands are way too young to be Leia's in the trailer. And when he said that, I went back and I looked, and yeah, they are the hands of a younger woman. So, like you said before, my assumption is it's being handed to one of the kids.
And this is where we get into like theories and stuff. Now, I'm going to go ahead.
JJ is great at. He's great at making us theorize what he's actually saying.
He's also very good at misdirection. So,
no doubt.
And it's amazing what makeup can do to anything, including hands.
Indeed, fair enough.
Right.
Or even computers.
See, I can't figure out if this MakingStarWars.net or .com or whatever it is that seems to have the lowdown is really just a disinformation campaign, just propaganda, or...
For me, I'm trying to avoid as many spoilers as I can. And I think that was my mistake with episode 1. I had to know everything, and I had to know everything, and I had to know everything. And when I went the different route by episode 3, being able just to sit down and enjoy episode 3 for what it was and not feel like I know everything that's getting ready to happen.
Right.
For me, I'm trying to avoid all that stuff as much as I can. I'll watch a trailer. I'll look at a picture every once and again, but I'm not going to go seek out stuff because I want to enjoy it for what it is when I enjoy it.
Well, even Mark Hamill took to Twitter and, pleaded with people, don't do that. Just walk in not knowing anything and make a judgment based off of what you see, not what you expected.
I agree.
I think that's great for him to say that, but it's so hard as a Star Wars fan.
Kidding me?
I know, no, I agree with you. I'm not saying I disagree.
I served 7 years in naval intelligence. My whole job, my whole life for 7 years revolved around taking pieces of information and building a story out of them and seeing how close I came to reality. Are you kidding me? This is like the ultimate puzzle for me. I've already theory crafted 4 different, complete plots. And I'm saying, God, I hope I'm completely wrong because I just don't want to figure it out before it happens.
Let me pose this to you, gentlemen. How many more trailers do we get? Theatrically, I'm not TV spots. You can do those in the millions.
Yeah.
How many more do we? Do we only have 1 trailer left,
One.
or does he give us 1 or 2 more teasers before he gives us the real one? Call it October 1st.
I'm going to say just 1. This is what I want. I just want the 1. Because between another one that's going to give you 3.5 minutes of stuff, and the 2 minutes we already had and the 90 seconds we already had, he can craft 1,000 different spots. I mean, because really all the TV spots are just cutting up the other trailers.
Right.
So honestly, I just want one. Just one to sate me. And I don't want any plot points in it. I don't. I kind of want more of the same, just
Give
a
me
little
some
bit
more
more.
I think there'll be 2 full trailers, 2.5 minutes. And I do agree that I think the next one does come out with Ant-Man or around that time.
Because you won't get anything after Ant-Man until Cap next year, right?
Because
Civil War is chapter
February,
1 of
yeah.
Phase 3.
Right.
Yeah.
However, just like with Avengers, you had 2.5 minutes that were very similar, but also a little bit different. I think that's kind of Disney's motif, where we'll do that with Star Wars too. But unlike Avengers or any other movie they do, Star Wars is so sacred that you can't reveal every little thing and ruin what you're really doing. There has to be that awe and that surprise. Because we're going to get enough of that from everybody that's going to start buying the books in September to get what happened in the 30 years leading up to Episode 7.
Yeah, you're going to lose me for a weekend. I'm just
Right.
going to let you know that right now, because I'm going to read. Because of those 20 books, probably only 5 of them are actually going to be adult novels.
Right.
You know, there's going to be a lot of comics, a lot of young adult novels, a lot of graphic novels. But I'm going to burn through those 5 novels.
So, I mean, you have to have that one important trailer. I mean, but you can make a second one that's very similar to it and release it, with every movie, even if it's not a Disney movie, leading up to December.
Now you've also got Star Wars Rebels that comes back in June as well.
Exactly.
So do you just maybe recycle this trailer, put it on the season premiere of that? Because I believe it's a 1-hour premiere.
Probably, yeah. And I'm very much looking forward to that.
Love that show.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Absolutely love that show. I said on Twitter after about the 4th episode, I said, Star Wars Rebels, it's like Marvel's telling Lucas, how come we can play with your toy better than you can?
Yeah, it's
the storyline keeps me interested.
Look,
the trailer for the new season.
It took a while to get going because they had to establish the group. But now that they've established the group, they're moving into the larger rebellion, and you can see the rebellion that we know developing in earnest. And now that they're leaving Lothal, and they're going to, they've brought Vader onto the show, and James Earl Jones, God bless you for coming back.
He's the reason God doesn't talk to me. God has to wait for James Earl Jones to pass, and then he gets his voice box back.
Well, then it goes to Morgan Freeman, so he's still screwed.
Morgan Freeman's only got it on a leased basis. So.
Yeah, okay. But anyway.
Well, very, very true. But I think George Lucas is the primary example of what a showrunner does. You're the idea man. You're the overall. You scribble your notes, but you don't write out every little detail. That's why you have a writing staff. You came up with, the overall story, but now you have a whole team at Disney, and they basically paid you $4 billion to be able to say, here's the little details that we're going to do. Here's what we're going to get back to. Because the prequels are prime examples of when you want to have control of every little thing, you go off the rails.
Yeah, you need somebody to be able to tell you no.
But you're also in the age where the people making those decisions are the generation that grew up on it.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of ownership there, I think, from the people at Disney to say, look, this is what we grew up on and this is what we love.
Well, and
we want to remind ourselves of what we loved about this.
The best thing George did in the past 10 years, in my opinion, was hiring Kathleen Kennedy.
Agreed.
Because look at what she has done over the years with Steven Spielberg. She knows how to make movies that people like. And she knows Star Wars. Honestly, and I know this is slightly off topic, but honestly, they just let Josh Trank go, who's directing the new Fantastic Four, and he was directing the second standalone or anthologies movie. They let him go. Honestly, I really hope they go for another Lucas alum. I hope they go get Joe Johnston, because he directed The Rocketeer, Captain America: The First Avenger, and he got his bones working on the original trilogy. He designed the final designs for Yoda and Boba Fett. Lucas liked him so much, he paid for him to go to USC Film School. He needs to direct that movie. That's my thing.
Well, I also think it's a very good decision by Disney to let this guy go. Like, if you're not up to the task of such a sacred franchise...
And there's a lot of bad buzz around the new Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah. So
I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't.
Well, that's where, thank God, it's a press screening for us, because we're not paying
and we saw that in 3D, too.
And as much as I love Allied and everybody who does the promotion, I'm not going to lie if it's a crappy film.
Well, no, and that's what's great about some of our business partners that we have.
Right.
How we all met through the Dallas International Film Festival and
Right.
the companies like Allied and Morocco and those. They told us straight up, look, if a movie's bad, we need you to tell us it's bad. We need to be able to give proper feedback to the studios, and I like that comfort level that we now have.
Right. We're not here to sugarcoat it. By the way, I will share this little funny tidbit from the Dallas International Film Festival that we were covering. The day they dropped the trailer, we're getting set up for red carpet interviews, and I mean, it was very hard to concentrate because it's like, did you see the trailer? How many times did you watch it? We're waiting to do interviews, and I'm playing it on my tablet for everybody. And like, hey, you guys paying attention? No, we're watching the Star Wars trailer. We kept personally making references with every person we interviewed, to the point of when we interviewed Thomas Mann, who was in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl movie. He was like, "Oh yeah, they dropped it. How many times did you watch it? Did you like it? What did you think?" Like,
well, we saw you guys that evening as we did our show at the Media Lounge, and that's all we talked about. And our friend Devin Pike, who was hosting karaoke, he put it on his big karaoke screen while we were waiting for everybody to show up.
I love the fact that people that are supposed to be promoting their films realize that it doesn't matter what I'm doing. This is how important. This is like a godlike sacred status that there's nothing I can do to compete with it.
Just kind of stopped time.
Okay, where a smuggler / space pirate who's basically a criminal, but has redeemable features, and you get that John Wayne-esque type of character back in space type of stuff.
Well, and from an episode 4 standpoint, absolutely. But then you get to episode 5, and he did something that was very daring for the time.
The bad guys won.
The bad guys won.
Right.
And you sat there and you got to the end of Empire and you went, here's a question. You knew, since you knew there was going to be another episode, you knew at some point the good guys have to win, and then there's the big group hug and whatnot.
Right.
But to leave Empire like he did, I remember when Empire came out and seeing the news footage where it looked like people were at Disney trying to get on a ride, but it was the line at the movie theater.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't a line as much as it just was a mob of people around this theater waiting to see this film. Then you have all the merchandising. I mean, what kid at that age didn't see the card where you got all the figures and went, oh, this is happening. Don't care what you got to do, Ma. Make this happen.
Christmas at my house.
So what was your first experience with Star Wars?
It was, I was born in Iowa, so I moved to Florida when I was 5. But before, it was, of course, I was 3 when it came out, as we said. We went to a one-movie house in the downtown area where we lived. And it was one of these old movie theaters that had the balcony, and it was back in those times where you kind of got dressed up to go to the movies. That was a big deal. And I remember walking in the lobby, and there were production stills everywhere. And the one I always remember and I always go back to was the production still of Luke's X-Wing coming from Yavin on getting ready to come to the Death Star, which of course then turned into 9,000 X-Wings after Special Edition. But I remember that production still. I remember where it was. I remember seeing it and going, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Now granted, I hadn't hit school age yet, so, but for,
right,
almost 36 months of living on this
but
planet,
then
the
again,
coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Tell me something around that time that was as cool as that. I mean, I love the movie Logan's Run, but
I didn't see Logan's Run until later.
Yeah, but you look at all the special effects and you're like, I mean, really the only movie that could kind of compare to the special effects and how they did things was Silent Running, like 6 years before.
Right. And
okay.
It was literally something we'd never seen.
Right.
I was way too young to be able to sit through Silent Running, but I could sure sit through Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
This was something that all of a sudden when that light went on in my head, it was one of these things that my mom saw and was like, I can get him entrenched in this. This is something positive. This is something good. This is something constructive that won't put him on the wrong path if I get him on it now. We don't want to talk about what happened later, but still.
It was a lightsaber that went on in your head.
It pretty much was.
Well,
yeah.
and if you want to talk about like religious experiences or a simplistic way of trying to understand how the world works, Obi-Wan's perfect explanation of the Force. It's an energy field that binds the galaxy together. Okay, it was simple. It seemed like everybody got it. It didn't matter what your religion was. You're like, yes, we might add more to that, and whatever our own religious belief is. But I get that feeling, and I get that, we're all connected somehow, some way. But in this universe, it's called the Force.
And as we've gotten older, it's never gone away.
That
You found friends, and your friends surrounded you were the ones that were like-minded individuals, especially when you're young, and what we had with Star Wars.
Well, and I think a big reason for why that is when you said, I was 3 years old, but it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. In 1977, there were people our age that were in the theater, and they were 35 years old, 36, 40 years old, and it was the coolest thing they'd ever seen, too.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
that's a big reason why.
And just the fact that it's, you put you down on the table. I was the kid, my grandparents, they didn't need a Christmas list from me. They didn't need a birthday list. They would just call my mom and go, what doesn't he have that we can afford?
I think everybody in my family, both my parents being divorced, my grandparents, all had an action figure card, the back of it, with crossing out what I already had and who was getting me what.
And then the toys just kept getting more awesome.
Right.
I remember the first time I saw an AT-AT toy, and I was like, this is insane.
I was so jealous of my cousin, David Plowman, because he had the AT-AT toy. He had 2 of them. And
I had a snow speeder.
I did have a snow speeder.
I did have one of those.
Yep.
I had the
speeder
biker
bike.
scout gun.
Yep.
I had that gun that they had.
I had the speeder bike.
I never got the light up lightsaber, but I got the plastic one that had the holes in the top, so when you swung it around,
the wiffle bat.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so we all know the original trilogy is this very sacred thing. It's
Absolutely.
awesome. All 3 movies. Even though we can all pretty much agree that Empire is probably the best out of the trilogy.
I'm not in agreement.
Really? You're not going to agree with us
I'm a
on
Jedi
that?
guy. Always have been. Because I root for the good guys. I love Empire. Don't get me wrong. Like, the fact that they were able to do effects in the snow like they did, like, special effects are awesome as they are, but when you can do them in those kind of adverse conditions and make it look cool, I was always a Jedi guy because the good guys win in the end.
You better love Empire. That would be sacrilegious.
No, I'm not saying I don't love Empire, but I'm a Jedi guy.
Honestly, I'm really the outlier because my favorite is and always will be A New Hope. Just because it's the original. It's the first one I saw, and it's the one I fell in love. Is Empire a better movie? Probably. But it's not my favorite.
Do you find any redeeming qualities about the prequels? I mean, you mentioned earlier that you're the only one that likes Episode 1 because it sets it up.
It sets everything up. And that's when I went in to see Episode 1, that's the mind frame I went in with. Was, okay, we know Anakin's going to become Vader. I had a buddy of mine that joked that Episode 3 should just be called Just About Everybody Dies. Like, we know we're leading up to that. So I was able to watch Episode 1 with the mind frame of, this isn't going to be spectacular, this isn't going to melt my brain, but it's getting me ready for what's coming.
But even though we deal with Hayden Christensen, who's really not, or as we like to call him, he who shall not be named. I'm sorry I named him for this, but you deal with really bad dialogue and all that.
My problem with Episode 1 isn't that he's setting things up. My problem with Episode 1 is that you made a movie for kids, because let's face it, Star Wars is for kids.
Right.
We're all just big kids. They made a movie for kids, and then they made it about a trade dispute and naval blockades.
Fair enough. But I think the other problem that you have to get past, and this is going to be a horrible comparison, but roll with me. The first time you saw X-Men First Class, if you didn't take your geek brain out of the door, it would melt it. Because First Class is so far out of continuity, it's almost back in it.
Right.
Episode 1's kind of the same way. Because when you start nitpicking
Episode
Episode 1,
First Class.
No, it's a good. That's what I'm saying. This is going to be a weird analogy, so you have to roll with me. But when you start nitpicking Episode 1, you realize that yes, there are plot holes bigger than a truck to drive through. Like, how did Vader not recognize the droids? He designed them as a kid. He has the memory.
But I'm not even getting
If
into
I'm going to
that.
bog myself in that kind of minutia, I'm never going to be happy.
But I'm not even getting to that minutia. I'm just saying that the plot was boring, and that seeing Vader as a 5-year-old was unnecessary.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it didn't bother me because I just took it for what it was. I knew I was not going to get Episode 4. I knew that. And I pretty much knew that about the whole trilogy. But
yeah, I agree with you there.
If you give a thirsty man a drink, it doesn't matter if it's water or urine. He's going to drink it. And we had the better part of 2 decades with nothing, like literally nothing but
that doesn't
books
make it right. I choked on
video
that urine.
games. And we all did.
So
But that's why it just didn't bother me, because I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I guess I see where you're coming from, and I understand your point, but I just disagree.
We have the right to agree to disagree, absolutely.
So when you, like all of us, were you shocked when you heard that Lucas was selling to Disney and that they were going to be making?
That's another moment I remember where I was. I was working nights, and I was sitting at my computer in my cubicle, and IMDb is where I first saw it.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I went, I have this rule on our podcast. I need it from 3 sources before I believe it. Like, we were on the air the night Whitney Houston died. We were on the air when it was announced. Somebody announced it in our chat room. I said, I'm not reporting this until I can get it from 2 more sources.
Yeah.
Because the internet is what it is.
Right.
So I was like, the number seems a little high, but I'm going to hold off. And then Yahoo reported it. And then, where else did I see? I think it was on CNN's website.
Yeah. Once
And
Yahoo
at
grabbed
that
it, it went
point, yeah,
everywhere.
once it hit that, I'm like, okay, this is now a thing. They had just bought Marvel, not 4 or 5 months prior,
Right.
if that. So, as soon as I read that they had bought the Lucasfilm stuff, we knew they already had a pass with Lucasfilm because of the stuff that was on the Disney Channel. You have Star Tours,
Yeah.
which they had just redesigned, so it's never the same ride twice. So you kind of, looking, hindsight being what it is, you saw the writing on the wall. It was just a matter of how big is the check going to be. When it was announced and they said, this is what we're doing 7, 8, 9, I don't think I'm alone when the name Timothy Zahn popped in my head, and I prayed to the heavens and all things good and holy, but we knew it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and anybody and people ask, why do you think it's not going to happen? I said, simple. Go and reread Heir to the Empire. About 50% of it has been retconned by the prequels.
Yeah, and there's only one thing I want from Disney, and you can do this. I need a CGI feature of Shadows of the Empire. That's all I want.
From Blur Studios. Done?
That book I love that book so much, and I thought even the Super Nintendo video game was great.
Fantastic.
Or was that N64? It was N64.
Yeah.
But essentially, you were excited.
I was totally on board. But being a guy that grew up in South Florida, you kind of get Disney ingrained in who you are.
Right.
And so there is a certain bias there. But I was totally okay with this.
So there seems to be this big debate. Now, I think everybody was excited, no matter what, because it's Star Wars. And no matter how horrible it might be, we're going to go see it. Because as geeks, as fanboys, we have to do it.
And see, that's why I never understood
Right.
the loud, gurring fanboy. It's like, you're gonna go. Like, you're going to go. Just
I can explain
accept
that
it for
for you.
what it is.
Right.
I can explain that for you. Go to Penny Arcade, the greater internet dickwad theory. Normal person plus audience plus opinion plus anonymity equals total fuckwit.
Right. But I bet you could count on one hand the number of people that whined and complained that didn't go see it. We're going to go.
No,
it's
I can't.
who we are. It's in our DNA.
I can't count on one hand because they don't exist.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We're going to go.
Yes.
It could be 2 hours of squirrels mating in a cage. Put Star Wars on it, we'll be there.
Put the honey badger in there, we're okay.
Exactly.
Now,
Put Star Wars on it, we're going to be there because that's who we
the
are.
big debate that we've had with our interviews, and I'm sure we will continue to have as we interview people, what was your reaction when you heard J.J. Abrams?
Totally in. Totally in.
No, you were
Right?
You weren't dissuaded at all.
No, my first thought was, we're crossing the streams here. But
Ray, you said never to cross the streams.
and we were
Crossing the streams
talking
is
about
bad.
this. We were talking about this in pre-show.
Yeah.
He has a pass because I enjoyed the Star Trek films, but he did Alias, and he has a pass with me because of Alias alone. I love that show. Now I didn't watch Lost because Lost started as Alias was finishing, and I can't do 2 HJJ projects at one time. I can't because my brain just would explode.
Well, and you got my thoughts on that in that same discussion as well. the reason why I'm optimistic about JJ with Episode 7 is because he's already made 2 good Star Wars movies. They just happen to be called Star Trek.
But I think again, you've got the guy that's of our generation that grew up with the awe and the wonderment, and I think maybe that's where Lucas really went off the rails. Is he aged? He's still that much older than us, so that sense of pride that we have now, maybe he didn't have as much. But I think JJ's got that. He's got that. Look at this generation of filmmakers.
Yeah.
Him and Whedon alone. That's all you need.
Yeah.
These are guys that get it. They understand. And the fact that we're getting these from the lenses of guys who get it.
Or like Stephen DeKnight with the Daredevil show.
Oh.
That reaction says it all.
And they're getting season 2 already.
Yes.
Which I'm very excited. I'm excited about the whole Netflix Marvel Universe thing they're doing. It's amazing.
So Disney, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, all of that wrapped up in one. For you personally, it's going to be great. It has to be great.
I'm going to cry like a child.
And the icing on the cake, John Williams is back.
Yes.
But
of course he was going to be, but
now are you?
Just had to happen.
Are you afraid that it's going to suck at all? Are you?
We've got to the end of fanboys, haven't we? What happens if the movie sucks? There's a small margin for error for me. There just is. There was a little bit from when I saw Episode 1 trailers. There was a little bit of me that went, slow your roll, killer. Ease up. I don't have that feeling with these Episode 7 trailers and the things I've seen.
Do you think a big part of it too is because they've gone back to practical effects? They've gone back to the type of filmmaking they
I
should be doing?
absolutely believe that plays a role. I think we've gotten a little too reliant. Like I went back recently and watched my Blu-rays, the special editions, and there were moments where I was watching and I was going, dude, you didn't even try. Like, this doesn't even match. Like, I know what the original footage looks like. At least try to fool me and tell me this is the original footage. Some of the effects didn't even line up. Look at the scene where they're going into Mos Eisley.
Yeah. Right.
Am I playing a video game? Because that's what this looks like. It didn't have that same feel, and that's what the train wreck of special editions was, which is why I'm glad I have the THX remasters on Laserdisc. You know?
I have the 2006 special editions, which on the bonus discs have the original theatrical releases.
Now,
Nice.
I think that there's always a danger about bringing original cast members back to a film, to such a beloved franchise, especially when they're older. We've already gotten this prime example with Indiana Jones 4. I will
talk about the movie that showed up in May. What did we learn,
I'm
though?
sorry.
What did we learn?
I'm sorry.
If you want to survive a nuclear holocaust, get in the fridge. That's what we learned.
Look, but in all fairness to George Lucas, he did actually poll nuclear physicists if that was true, and 50% of them said it could happen. So, I mean, as ridiculous as it is, I get why that's in the film.
That's the old joke, why are you here? Okay, so I'm naked in a fridge?
Right. But I think there's that real danger that even though you have the original cast coming back, this is over 30 years later. They're all old. I mean, the only one that I will always be excited for Han Solo coming back. And I love the fact that Luke Skywalker is now the Obi-Wan character. But
I think they're not going to be in it as much as you think they will be. I think their involvement in the deal is going to be minimal.
They are the Obi-Wan. They are the older characters that are the mentors.
This
They're
new,
not the
this
main
new
characters.
cast is going to be it's just my gut feeling.
Yeah.
I can't base that on anything. I just have the feeling that JJ has brought them back
to pass the torch.
to literally to pass the torch. You'll see them
Or the lightsaber.
sprinkled in, but I don't think you're going to have them involved as much as I think people think they will.
They'll be involved just enough to sate
absolutely.
our fanboy funny bone.
But you're not worried at all that it could be another type of movie of that.
I will say that for the first time I saw the shot of Han and Chewie, it looked like they photoshopped his head on that body for me. It looked kind of wobbly for me, but I'm okay because I really honestly believe in my heart of hearts that this thing is in good hands on all levels, from script writing to studio to director to producers. These are the people that have the passion that we have for it because there are generational people.
And this is the main reason why you could be excited.
Absolutely. I could not be more excited about these films. And not just episode 7. I'm talking 7, 8, 9, whatever we're going to do in
The anthology series.
Yeah, I mean, was it Rogue One?
Yeah, Rogue One's the first one, yeah.
You know, you've got people involved. If you had said to me a year ago, Oscar Isaacs, I would have laughed at you.
But, I loved him on the panel when he came out and said, well, tell us a little about who Poe Dameron is. He goes, he's the best damn pilot in the galaxy, that's it. And I was like, all right, you're as cocky about your character as your character is supposed to be in the movie, so I like that.
And then I saw Most Violent Year, and very passable film for me. But after seeing Ex Machina,
yeah,
I'm in on it, because that movie was not only was he was so good in that movie, but that movie was so great, and it was a sci-fi film, so you got that framework around it.
Sure.
So I'm totally okay with him. I haven't seen any casting yet that's made me go.
The only one that made me go was what's Adam Driver, just because somebody put up a post that said it had 1 Sith, 2 Sith, red Sith, ball, and then blue Sith. It had the Emperor, and then it had a picture of him from Girls, and it said "New Sith?" ?
So we're going to talk about what we think is going to happen. I know you don't like to talk about rumors, but we can't.
Rumors all we have at this point.
Well, we can't help but not talk about them. And Brandon actually posted this really very, very long, I swear to God, I thought you were writing a college essay here after the trailer got dropped about what we think is going to happen. So I'm going to start it off with this. The most important fact. Yes, I absolutely believe Kylo Ren and Rey are the twins of Han and Leia.
Okay.
I may be completely wrong.
It keeps the family theme of the whole series.
Exactly.
And, if you go Luke and Leia, Kylo Ren, and going from the exhibit hall at Celebration, her name's not just Rey, it's Kira Rey.
Kira Rey,
which is
Kylo
actually,
Ren.
yeah, the alliteration that goes along with Luke and Leia.
I can roll with that.
So
right.
You throw Solo on the end of that, and hey, they're twins.
Well, Brendan and I have had this discussion before about the EU, about the twins, and one of them turning to the dark side, and we've actually debated and argued about this before. I personally love I love that story where one of them turns bad, and I love the story that, in the books, it's Jaina, right? Jaina Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she has to kill her brother.
Jason.
And all that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tragic, and whether that's actually going to be the same story in this trilogy, I think you're talking something similar to that she's the one that, again, kind of brings balance to the Force within this family. That, and if you talk about balance of the Force, there's good, there's bad.
Right.
There has to be those two things within each other to have perfect balance. So, to me, they are the twins.
Let me ask this.
Okay.
We've talked about how JJ is the master of misdirection.
I may be falling for it big time, but I don't care.
Given that fact, and given how they have vehemently denied that we're not having any EU involvement in this trilogy at all.
They have not, actually. They left themselves a back door.
Okay.
They said...
Because this is the root of the question. Are we going to get EU references?
Well, they said they are getting rid of the EU. And the reason why they got rid of the EU is very simple. The EU is a big bloated mess.
It is, indeed.
There's tons of contradictions. There's some great writing. Timothy Zahn, Michael Stackpole, Aaron Alston, Alan Dean Foster. There's also Karen Travis. So the Twilight author of Star Wars. But anyway, point being, I'm glad they got rid of it. However, when they got rid of it, they did say, we reserve the right to use any places, characters, names, or plots from the EU going forward, and they've already shown a willingness to do so. They brought Darth Bane into Season 6 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. For those of you who don't know, Darth Bane was the Sith that is the progenitor of the Rule of Two. The books trilogy is written by Drew Kopershin, who wrote Knights of the Old Republic for BioWare. So, if you like Knights of the Old Republic, go read those books. They're good books. It'll explain the Rule of Two. So they've already canonized something from the EU. So they've left themselves a back door. They've said, no, we're not going to use it. We might.
But now let's answer the question. Do they? I think you're going to get little references that if you're a casual fan will blow right by you. But if you're somebody that's deeply entrenched in this deal, just like they've done with Marvel, you know, what you see, Ultron as you see him is not as you see him in the comics, but there's a little nod to him close to the end of the film.
But the twins fall into that category, especially because they're not naming them the same. Okay, they're different names, but it's still the Solo twins. It's still Han and Leia's kids.
Look, you don't have to use the exact details, but you can use the storylines. You can use similar storylines because there are great storylines. Okay, in great storytelling, there's tragedy in it, and why not? You know, be tragic with, okay, they're the twins. She may be escaping her destiny, which is one rumor. They may not even realize they're twins because something happened years before that drove Han and Leia apart because of whatever tragedy. But the fact that she's the one that has to go up against them and train to be a Jedi.
And I'm also okay that they're not necessarily twins.
Well, yeah, that'd be fine.
Do you work the angle of he was the older one, she was born, she got the attention, drives him to the dark side, then she has to redeem him back into the family?
I actually think it'll go a little bit differently, and this goes into where it's instead of being called the Empire and the Rebels or the Empire and the New Republic, it's being called the First Order and the Resistance. Let's say, for argument's sake, that sometime between Episode 3 and Episode 4, the Emperor sent out a fleet of ships on a fleet of expansion and exploration. They went into the unknown regions of space, they set up colonies, they set up shipyards, they were on, let's say, just because we're crossing the streams, a 50-year mission.
Okay. Maybe they didn't get the memo.
That the Empire fell. They come back, let's say 5 to 10 years before this movie.
Which we know there's 30 years between.
Yeah, exactly. They find Emperor Palpatine dead and what they consider the lawful government overthrown by these upstart New Republic people. They attack. Now, not everybody was all, happy and joyful that the rebels won. Some of these systems had it really good under Uncle Palpatine.
Indeed.
So all of a sudden, all of these people, all these systems flock to the First Order. And within the New Republic government, they may have actually conscripted or just absorbed the losers of the war with the Empire, and all of a sudden these guys attack from within and flock to the First Order. Now the New Republic crumbles almost instantaneously because they're being attacked from without and from within, and you have the New Republic gets reorganized, probably under Leia, into the Resistance.
Well, there's going to be a leader.
Exactly.
It's going to be her.
Yeah, and it's going to be the Resistance.
Because Luke's not the leader. Luke's the warrior. Han's the wild card.
And
she's the leader.
And let's say that Luke was training Kylo to be his apprentice, and years of war against the First Order caused him to turn to the dark side, kind of like how the Clone Wars led to Anakin's slip. And he turns to the dark side and betrays Luke to the First Order, which would explain the rumor that at the beginning of the movie, Luke has been missing for some time, and also ties into what Oscar Isaac spoke about at the panel, saying that Poe Dameron has been put on a special mission by a certain princess. Maybe that mission is from Leia, who has discovered the whereabouts of her brother, and she sends Rogue Squadron, or whatever his squadron is, to go rescue her brother.
But I think that's the brilliance of what we're dealing with right now. There's so many directions this can go. And not giving us everything sparks this debate.
Oh,
and sparks even more interest. And that's what I love about this.
Yeah.
Is don't tell me more. You can, like you said earlier, show me some images here and there.
Yeah, hint at things, but don't tell me.
Keep me guessing until my butt is in the seat and the lights go down.
Well, in an episode of Next Generation, Picard is trying to explain to these aliens who they're super xenophobic, they don't want anybody to know their existence. They're like, you left too many loopholes when you knocked out our memories. You can't give humans a mystery. We're going to scratch at it. So, I love having that mystery, and I love having that puzzle.
One of the rumors I do like is that there is that, Rey or Kira and Kylo were both trained to be Jedi when they were younger. There was a tragedy. They both kind of disappeared, or they had to be hidden. He went off or whatever. turned to the dark side. She's kind of been in hiding and, you know, not even with Han and Leia. That's what drives them apart. That's why they're, and for her to go on the hero's journey, she finds out more of the truth about what's going on with, you know, the resistance and all that. You know, trying to run away from being a Jedi until she finally has to accept that mantle that this is your destiny. Just like Luke, I'm going to train you, okay? And, you know, by the way, your brother's the one that turned to the dark side, and you're the one that's going to have to stop him.
I like that theory. And one of the things, and this may be me just living my delusions, I always thought she would be the hardest sell to bring back. So in my brain, JJ brought her something
Right.
that cast Leia as such a strong character that she couldn't say no.
Right.
And again, that may be me living my delusions, but I honestly believe that her character, even though I still believe they're going to be a very limited time in this film, I think you're going to see a stronger side of Leia that you didn't get to see the first time.
Well, the one thing about the original trilogy too is, you know, part of, you know, the hero journey for Skywalkers is redemption. You have to redeem somebody. So we already get into that theory that Kira is going to have to redeem her brother, okay? Or even if it's, you know, even if he wants to be like Vader and he's only redeemed on his deathbed, okay?
It still happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't think we get away from the fact that they are twins. I don't see that happening. You know, the only thing that I am going against what I originally thought is Luke doesn't really have a son, so Domhnall Gleeson is not really going to be Ben Skywalker or whomever. He doesn't have kids. He really is the Obi-Wan character where he never had spawn. But there are Skywalker, another generation of Skywalkers. It's with these two. Rey, or Kira, she is the main hero. She's the one that's going to become the Jedi. And of course, you'll probably have
They're showing her an awful lot in the trailers, too.
Exactly.
She's the one that offers the hand. She's the one
right.
that,
And, you know, of course, there is that other rumor, too, that when you see the Millennium Falcon flying through the inside of the Star Destroyer, that's really her flying it, trying to get the lay of how to do this, but somehow she knows, trying to, you know, rescue John Boyega, and then they meet up with Han and Chewie and find it. I just think there's a lot out there that's actually going to be correct. So,
and correct in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wholeheartedly agree with is Max von Sydow's character, who's like the vicar or the leader of this, you know, Colleen and Jacob. I think they're the people left over that he was really, you know, a grand ball for commander of the Star Destroyer, and when they crashed, they just settled and set up civilization.
Or like you said, they were a squadron that didn't get the memo.
Well,
and maybe they didn't get the memo so long that they're now showing up.
Well,
Not
that's
necessarily after Endor, but now.
Well, he's talking about the people that crashed on Jakku 30 years ago.
Right.
Not, and that was the battle that happened after Endor. I'm talking about, you know, that would be the people coming back as the First Order. He had never left the galaxy. You know, this guy that plays the general. So, you know, the First Order coming back with the Star Destroyers and the new troopers and whatnot. I'm saying they're coming back from outside the known galaxy and they don't know what's going on.
Right.
Max von Sydow's character had been there the whole time. He's been there in the 30 years since he crash landed on Jakku.
The other Hydra.
The other Hydra. Or you could look at it that way.
Because the Hydra went into hiding and now they're back.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up with a couple other quick theories.
Okay.
One, I'm totally going to disagree with your theory, buddy. I do not think John Boyega is Calrissian's son.
No, I just threw that out there for fun.
I think he's just another lost soul that, you know, gets grouped into the new young heroes. Just like Luke, Han, and Leia all came together, there's these three characters that are coming together.
It would be a nice nod to Billy D. Williams, though, because he physically can't do the role anymore.
Right.
I mean, the guy can barely walk. He had to get off of Dancing with the Stars because of back and hip surgery.
Right.
I mean, he just couldn't move.
Well, it's good to hear his voice in Rebels.
Right.
Yes,
Even though he looked kind of like a caricature, which is a little weird for me.
Right.
It was like his head was
Now,
huge.
he could be like an illegitimate son because Lando seems to have gotten around quite a bit in
Intergalactic
the galaxy.
Intergalactic Pim.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, then again, though, that might, with his head being so big on Rebels, that might just be kind of a little joke. You know, 'cause he had a big ego. So,
Now, the other major important thing of what I think is going to happen is, you know, they've been floating that rumor out for a while about, you know, Luke is, he's hidden, either or he was captured, and he's a little crazy or whatever, and that he is protecting some kind of Sith relic because it's too powerful of a weapon, and that kind of thing. I think there's a truth to that.
But does he know?
Right. There, if you look at the teaser trailer, that there has been an awakening. I don't think the total Sith is Kylo Ren. I think there is something much larger that we haven't seen.
Always two.
Well,
exactly.
And is it? But has that? Let's look at it in a broader spectrum. Has that awakening? And somebody brought this up. The Force Awakens. Maybe it's not just one or two people. Maybe all of a sudden there's a spontaneous, the Force is popping up all over the place with Force users everywhere,
right?
And people are choosing sides, and we're not seeing the rule of two anymore. But you've got everybody that's got to choose a side, light or dark.
Well, and here's the other side too. We already know that not all the Jedi died from Order 66. Okay, they're still kind of out there hidden and all that. I think it's reasonable that as this 30-year gap that Luke tried to make a Jedi Academy, try to bring people back. Maybe there is a big tragedy and everybody's scattered again. But it's the same thing for the Sith. They're out there. They're
recruiting too.
Exactly. And maybe there is something just as powerful as Vader that Luke, as strong as he is in the Force now, sees. Maybe he's protecting, maybe he's trying to keep it, I don't know. But he also knows that he's not going to be strong enough, just like Obi-Wan, to do it alone, and he has to start training an apprentice who can be. And that's the final Jedi test, just like him defeating Vader. It's something much larger than just Kylo Ren, and again, because it keeps talking about this castle that he's kind of hidden in, and there's like a still shot of him outside on like some faraway kind of island with a, some kind of, not Gothic, it's not the word I'm looking for, but ancient type of building. Okay, and he's in the Jedi robe, is tattered and all that. So you can't just have one little thing that sets up for this entire trilogy. Where Vader pretty much dominated the entire trilogy, and it was Luke discovering who he was, becoming the Jedi, redeeming his father. I think you're looking at something on a lot wider of a scale than just centering on this family. And it's what's going to be that danger throughout the galaxy now, not just one.
And I really hope, tying in with what you said there, I really hope there's some nods to the Old Republic storylines that BioWare did, because that mask that Kylo Ren wears is awfully damn reminiscent of Darth Revan.
Right.
So I'm really hoping there's some type of wink or nod to the fans, like you said earlier, that the casual fans won't get, but that us ridiculous consumers.
Let's go a little bit out of the realm, because there's one question we haven't asked yet. Over under on the length of this thing?
2.5.
I think 2.5 is probably going to be about right.
I think keeping up with the other thing. But I'm going to ask one final question, because I think this is a big one with all the rumors.
Okay.
Does Han Solo die in this film?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.